Mr. Chair, we're now live.
Thank you, Mr. Clerk, and thank you for everyone joining us at home and online here on this beautiful Monday, March 21st, the General Government Committee meeting. I'd like to call this meeting to order now. And we'd like to begin this meeting by acknowledging that the land on which we gather is situated within the traditional and treaty territory of the Mississaugas. More specifically, the Mississaugas of Scugog Island, First Nations signatories of the Gunshot Treaty of 1788, and the Williams Treaties of 1923. This land is and will continue to be home to the Indigenous peoples. Let us acknowledge the mistakes and traumas of the past through authenticity and support truth and reconciliation. Let us engage and celebrate Indigenous communities by being leaders of action and acknowledging the United Nations Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous Peoples and the Truth and Reconciliation Commission's recommendations towards truth and reconciliation. Let us keep these principles close as we continue towards truth and reconciliation and as we move forward with kindness and respect as a community. I also would like to say that due to the COVID-19 emergency declaration, this meeting of the General Government Committee is being held electronically and live streamed on the town's website. All members of council in attendance are participating by audio and video teleconference, and town staff are available throughout the meeting. If council members have any questions on the agenda, for members of the public watching from home, please bear with us if we encounter any technical difficulties throughout the meeting. So I would like to acknowledge at this point that Mayor Collier sends his regrets and will not be attending this meeting. And we have a number of items that have been pulled. 4.1, 4.6, and 4.8 has been pulled by Regional Councillor Crawford, and 4.7 has been pulled by Regional Councillor Lee. On the balance of the agenda in that section, sorry, can you just scroll up?
Mr. Chair, can we
yes.
Can we begin with disclosures of pecuniary interest and adoption of minutes?
In order as it says, of course. Number 2 on the opening meeting agenda says, are there any disclosures of pecuniary interest from any member of council? Okay, there being none. And first, can I, number 3, have the adoption of the minutes? 3.1, need a mover for the 2022 operating budget. Regional Councillor Crawford. Any questions on that? There being none. All in favor? Okay, looks like we got everybody. Thank you so much. Okay. Next, we have 3.2, the regular meeting, February 22nd, 2022. Moved by Councillor Bauer. Any questions on that item? There being none. All in favor? That passes as well. Continuing with the adoption of minutes at 3.3, the closed session meeting, February 22nd, 2022. Going to have a mover for the closed session. Regional Councillor Dyes, I see your hand. All in favor? And no questions. Okay, great. Thank you so much. Now we move on to the consent agenda. And I will just go back to my trustee list. As I said, for the balance, I've already read which are being pulled. So can I have a mover for the balance of the agenda, the consent agenda? I saw Regional Councillor, Councillor Khan put his hand up. All in favor on the balance? Okay, that's great. Thank you so much. And that passes. We will then move on to the consent agenda. And we start with item number 4.1, which was pulled, which was grants and partnerships update by Regional Councillor Crawford. You have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Through you to either CAO Baker or Cassandra. My question is on not so much, good job on all of the grants that we did receive for sure. That is amazing. But my question is more around the ones that we didn't receive. So the projects that were listed, the project information, were these projects that were going to be like, with the exception of course, Computec College, were these like projects that would have been nice to have, and now that we have not received the funding or the application has been withdrawn, they're no longer on the radar, or are these now projects that we have to fund through a different source?
Thank you for the question through the chair to Regional Councillor Crawford. So it's a bit of a mix of both, actually. So I'll kind of speak to maybe the four and just to give you an idea for each of them. So on the Meadowway, so that was an application we submitted jointly with the region. The federal government, that was the funder, indicated that we were going to have really tight timelines to complete the project in, and we decided jointly that that wasn't feasible at this time. However, the region and the town are continuing to have conversations about how we can advance this project, because the region is really looking to use Ajax as the kind of flagship or flagstone version of this project. So this is the Meadowway that goes from Ontario Tech U to the Rouge Park, kind of through the Taunton Road and north of that hydro corridor. So this is something that, even though we're not getting funding for it at this time, we are going to continue to seek funding opportunities in partnership with the region. But a lot of the projects and components within this project for us are development charge funded multi-use paths and trail networks anyways. So these are in our longer term plans and in the DC study. But at this time, we've kind of put a pause on it pending either the timeline syncing up where we have those funds available on our own, or where new grant funding becomes available and appropriate. Okay. The cybersecurity protection grant, this was a little bit more of a nice to have. I mean, the town always, is seeking funding opportunities to invest in IT and for cybersecurity in particular. But a lot of the public facing training and cybersecurity for residents, this was a really would have been a nice to have that we would have liked to move forward with in the event we received the funding. But because there's no funding, I think internally the focus will continue just to be on bolstering our own cybersecurity at this time. The digital plans submission portal for planning, that's actually one that's in our capital budget currently, and that we've actually received some additional grant funds to assist moving forward with that. So that one's moving forward with grant funding anyways. And then the sports dome is another one that would have been nice to have. But at this point, it's not in our long range capital forecast at this time.
And what would be the reason to not receive funding for that particular project?
So in that case, the ISTP program was very oversubscribed. They had a lot of interest. I think, speaking with the ministry, they'd never had the kind of interest, because it was open to more than just municipalities. It was also open to community organizations. And I think in part because it was such a high dollar figure that we would be seeking for this. But we also hadn't had the Parks and Rec master plan hadn't been completed. So we didn't have any kind of foundational design work at that point. So, it would have been a longer term project that would have required more investment from the province. And they were looking for those more turnkey projects that were also focused on asset management and asset life cycles. So a lot of the projects that we got funded through that stream were our existing infrastructure, like the cricket pitch, the skate park, the basketball court, and pads 3 and 4.
Okay, and then so for Computec College, I know, did that create any kind of issues for them in their startup, not receiving that?
Through the chair, no, it didn't. We applied for a second round, and actually I'm in between this meeting and the end of the day, I'm working on a report that will be added to the council agenda for next week that will provide some more detail on Computec making some moves in Ajax and how we can be supporting them to do that.
Okay, awesome. So one last question. Thank you for your patience. In the one that the submission upcoming for the trail on Eagle Ridge School, the trail restoration, is that trail a new trail, or is that, because I know that the Eagle Ridge School, and I'm pretty sure Councillor Moran would be able to confirm this, has been asking for a trail connection for some time now. Is that part of that trail connection?
Through the chair, Director Meredith can correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe it is that trail that we're talking about, and that was where we have placed in our capital budget approximately $55,000, and we were looking for the school or the school board to come to the table with some additional funding. But this grant that's come available, we're looking to cover as much. I think it's up to 60% of the total project cost, so it'll alleviate some of the pressure on the school. Is our intention.
Okay, great. Thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Oh, you're welcome. And thank you so much. Just before I go to Regional Councillor Dyes, I'll just add Regional Councillor Crawford, that would be a new path, I believe. It's just mud at this point. It's just grass on that one portion. I think if you look at it from the top, that's my understanding, but I believe that's what they were asking for because there wasn't a path there. With that said, next we have Regional Councillor Dyes. And you're muted.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And Ms. Cruciano, you've done an amazing job in facilitating all of these projects through your grant process. Thank you so much. And I just wanted to ask a question about the Meadowway. So the Meadowway, my understanding is a Toronto initiative, and Durham, it's a great initiative, and Durham would like to continue it where they're leaving off. So I'm wondering why we don't differentiate that and call it what it is, the Durham Meadowway, because there's going to be people stepping up to the plate to help fund that, like the Westin family did in Toronto. And I think that they need to know that it's different. It's not the same project.
Through the chair to Regional Councillor Dyes, absolutely. And I believe the region has been working on a branding project that would indicate that it is the Durham Meadowway. And that's part of the reason why they approached the town is, I think because we are a forward-thinking organization, they came to us and indicated that they'd like us to be the kind of first segment that gets done where possible. So, but they did in all of our conversations call it the Durham Meadowway. And I think they're in the preliminary phases of branding and again, reaching out to those partners, like you spoke about the Westin Foundation, as well as our other public sector partners like Hydro, I believe like Hydro One will be involved and the TRCA as well.
Well, that's good to hear. It just remind me, it does go through the tip of Greenwood, does it not? Do you remember?
Through the chair, I know it goes through Pollen Park. I'm not sure if it goes through Greenwood, but somebody else on the call, maybe Director Meredith might have, or Director Romanowski might.
Yeah, through the chair to Councillor Dyes. This is the swatha hydro corridor that we have running from Church Street, south of Taunton, in a kind of northeasterly direction up to Westin and Taunton. So that's the swath of land that we're talking about there within the urban boundary.
So it's not going to connect with Greenwood at all? I mean,
well, we do have plans for connections, north-south connections to Greenwood, up through Church Street, up to Greenwood, through Church, and other connections. But this is kind of this southwest, northeast kind of connector through that hydro cut that's in that area.
Right. Because my understanding, we're going to have a national trail eventually going through Greenwood. It'd be nice for all of them to be able to connect.
Yes, of course. And I know there's plans in the future of having those north-south connections, and Greenwood overall is a plan in Church Street. But this is that, again, southwest to northeast trail connection through the hydro corridor between Church Street and Workman Circle, or the Remmerlands, up to Westin and Taunton.
Okay, well, I appreciate that. Thank you. It's a great project, and I know it's much loved in Toronto so far, and there's still a long way to go. So I hope it's very successful. Thank you.
Thank you, Regional Councillor Dyes. Are there any other questions on item number 4.1? There being none. Thank you, Ms. Cruciano, for all your work on this. I know that it's ongoing and greatly appreciated by all the taxpayers of the town of Ajax. Next up, we have item number 4.6, Council Chambers audiovisual upgrades and virtual meetings, and it was pulled by Regional Councillor Marilyn Crawford.
Mr. Chair, before we proceed with 4.6, can we get a vote on the recommendations for 4.1?
Yeah, we certainly can and should. And moved by Regional Councillor Marilyn Crawford. All in favor? Thank you for that, Mr. Clerk. And as I've said, 4.6, Council Chambers, audiovisual upgrades and virtual meetings. The floor is yours, Marilyn Crawford, Regional Councillor Crawford.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Through you to, I guess, either Director Cooper or to the clerk, Alec. So it seems that the region is going to be attempting to do a hybrid model of in-person meetings starting as soon as April, actually. I think there's going to be some kind of survey coming out, but and I do realize that our council chambers are not really equipped to have live feeds. Well, are not equipped at all to have live feeds. Is there any thought process around trying a hybrid model through GGCs or committee meetings? I mean, because it's about kind of, I think it's more about maybe the comfort level of people too, like, and what does that look like? And are people going to jump in and be, maybe by September or October, we might be ready to jump in and do that kind of thing? Or are we going to look at doing something more gradual? I think people are asking questions like that and why we're still virtual. And I mean, I totally understand why we're virtual, but the questions are being asked. So I thought I would just see if there was some sort of, I guess, gradual entry plan, I guess is maybe the way I better word it.
Sure. So through the chair to Councillor Crawford. So the vision, once we have the technology in place to do it, is most certainly for hybrid meetings for CAP, GGC, Council, and potentially some of our committees and quasi-judicial boards as well. So that is the ultimate vision, and that should be something that we can do just as soon as the technology upgrades are complete. The barrier in the meantime is really just the technology. So sort of, I think it's down on bottom of page 56 of the agenda. That's when we get into some of the challenges we would encounter if we tried to move back to an in-person format before the technology is available. And as you would have read in the report, we've unfortunately been severely affected by the supply chain issues and the hardware shortage. So that's really the barrier here. So, I mean, we do kind of talk about, if it was council's desire to move back into an in-person format before the technology upgrades are completed, there would be some challenges associated with that. And we just don't have the means to do a hybrid version in the absence of those upgrades. So it would be sort of an all or nothing basically at this point. But hybrid certainly is the long-term vision, and it should be ready to use all things going well by the fall, and certainly for the new term of council. And, we've been canvassing our colleagues across the region, and each and every municipality in the region, as far as I understand it, is looking to have hybrid meetings as sort of their norm going forward.
So can you refresh my memory, because it seems like such a long time ago, but was GGC in the River Plate room, was that a live feed?
No, that was just a record and post.
Okay. All right. Okay. Thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Okay. Are there any other questions on item 4.6? There be none. Can I get a mover for 4.6? Regional Councillor Sterling Lee, all in favor? That passes. Thank you so much. We're now on to 4.8, contract award, road resurfacing. And once again, we have Regional Councillor Marilyn Crawford.
Pardon me, Chair. I believe I had pulled 4.7.
You did chronologically. It would be you next. So let's do that first. I apologize. 4.7, Corporate Information Technology Strategic Plan, Year 2 update, pulled by Regional Councillor Lee. You have the floor, sir.
Thank you, Chair. So through the Chair to, I believe, the Manager of IT Services, with this phase 2, do you think we'll get to the point where we'll have like a customer portal where a resident, for example, could pull their property tax history? Because I believe that system is in place in Toronto. So I'm wondering, is that possible? Is that where we're headed towards, or that's not even in like the ballpark of where phase 2 and phase 3 are headed?
Through the chair to Regional Councillor Lee. So to answer the first question, is it possible? In this time frame, I would say yes. There's a couple things that, from the IT perspective or the corporate perspective, I should say, that should happen first, and that is our customer service strategy, which I believe is on schedule for this year. That strategy should look at that very type of thing, like a customer portal, and how or when it should be implemented. Based on that too, the IT strategy recommended like a digital services strategy, which could tie in very closely with the customer service strategy too, and kind of what we should be focusing on and what services we should be offering through a portal, like you mentioned. So, I think based on those type of things and those recommendations moving forward, and just like the plan for the corporation, those are things that certainly could happen. So I don't want to say it's in the plans, but it very much could be, and that's the way a lot of a lot of municipalities are leaning. Obviously, kind of a self-service type portal for various residents.
Okay, that's great. Ultimately, like you guys had presented, I think 2 years ago, the IT strategy. It's really to help a lot of staff optimize and, be more efficient in terms of customer facing. Customers don't know about Amanda or GIS, et cetera. So, I just wanted to make sure that down the line, there's a possibility of customer facing applications because, that's who we are trying to benefit as well directly. So that answer does answer my question. I appreciate it. Thank you, Chair. And at the appropriate time, I'll move it.
Perfect. Are there any other questions on item number 4.7? There being none, moved by Regional Councillor Lee. All in favor? That carries. Thank you so much. Now we go to 4.8, which is the contract award, road resurfacing. And once again, we have Regional Councillor Marilyn Crawford.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Really quick question. The resurfacing on Brennan Road, when Westin Heights Public School did their parking lot, they had inquired to me around the apron of the road of their parking of their driveways, and apparently that would not be done until the road was being resurfaced. So I just want to confirm that when we actually do the road resurfacing for Brennan, that the apron of their driveways will also be done.
I can answer that one. Good afternoon, everyone. Through the chair to Regional Councillor Crawford. There are two entrances to Westin Heights Public School from Brennan Road. The west entrance has already been completed, and the eastern entrance will have a full apron removal and replacement as a part of the road resurfacing. And as well, the sidewalk base will be looked at and replaced if required.
Okay, excellent. Thank you so much. Happy to move it.
Thank you.
I'm happy to hear that. That's great. Moved by Regional Councillor. Are there any other questions? Sorry, on 4.7. There being none. Thank you. Moved by Regional Councillor Crawford, and all in favor? That carries. Thank you so much. So that ends those items. We're on to discussions, which there are none, down to number 6, presentations. First, we have 6.1, which is Communication Plan, Recreation Park Master Plan. We have Director Meredith from the Director of Operations Environmental Services. Sir, you have the floor if you're on the line with us.
I am on the line. I'm just hoping that there's an image that comes up on your screen. I'm not sure.
Yes, we do see it. I don't know if you need to expand it or if the clerk can assist at this time, but we definitely see the outside of the beautiful Audley Rec Center. I was there on Sunday, actually, in Ward 2.
Okay, that's great. Really, the purpose of this presentation or this overview was just to inform council sort of where we're at and sort of the next steps in the process as it relates to public consultation regarding the Recreation and Parks Master Plan. And I guess over the last month or two, we've been looking at internally a way to integrate IMO with GIS to create more of a integrated opportunity for residents to provide feedback and comments as it relates to the master plan. So it is a little more interactive. Typically in the past, master plan documents get posted to the website. Individuals or stakeholders are required to go through the master plan, provide their comments and so forth. Whereas through this master plan development, we felt there was an opportunity to make it more visual and provide an opportunity or better opportunity to integrate IMO and GIS to foster, I guess, better feedback, better comments from the general public. So I just wanted to take you sort of through what's been developed to date prior to it being released to the public. So at this point in time, as you'll see here on the right-hand side where there are documents, so there will still be access to the full master plan document itself. So all the recommendations, all the background information would be available within this location here. What we've done is tried to illustrate through drawings, images, concept plans, what we're portraying as considerations within the parks and open space system. So if you do click on that particular button, what you will see is the list of concept plans. And you'll see later how they'll be able to be integrated with public feedback. But as we, I'm just trying to scroll through this, you'll see we've got images from the Ajax Community Center, St. Andrews Park, the Ajax Community Center North soccer field and the conversion to community parks. And then new neighborhood parks that are being introduced within the town sort of in the coming years. Stafford Homes within the downtown area, Magnum Opus Park, and so forth. And there's about 17 or 18 different parks that are identified within the master plan itself. What we've got identified is at this point in time, we have an online information session or a public meeting scheduled for March 31st. And that is when we plan to sort of promote and unveil this IMO webpage. So we'll go through the master plan, the key recommendations and findings, and direct people to this IMO webpage for them to provide feedback and comments. And then we would see that consultation generally taking place through the month of April, with the final plan being presented to council in May of 2022. As you can see here on the right-hand side, both myself and Chris Vita's names are identified as key contacts for any questions or thoughts that people have as they go through or review the document itself. And then as we get down to this page here, you'll see a map of the town of Ajax and the locations of all key properties where specific recommendations are being made within the document itself. And as you'll see on the left-hand side, they're all sort of listed here. And what essentially we would do, and I'll use the Ajax Community Center as an example, is by clicking on it, it'll take you to the area map so that you see the more detailed specific location. You can scroll in and out to get sort of a geographical context of where that property is located. And then when you click on more info, you will see there's a smaller image here, which sort of provides a summary of the amenities. But then you can also download the documents so that you'll see a larger version of the drawing and what's being proposed or recommended within the master plan itself. And then you can also, when you're in this area, what we've done for, I think it's about 8 or 9 of the drawings themselves, is we've created a narrated video of what's being proposed within the document itself. So for example, when you go into ACC, this is just, I guess, our first.
The Ajax Community Center is 50 years old and is in need of updates due to the future growth projected in Ajax, specifically downtown. This renovation provides an opportunity to modernize the facility, improve its overall functionality, and address accessibility. The reimagined ACC involves increasing the functional capacity of the Indoor Aquatic Center and Fitness Center and the addition of the gymnasium. For aquatics, a warm water pool is recommended to be added within the existing swimming area. The addition of a small pool would be beneficial for warm water programs such as preschool and beginner lessons and fitness or therapeutic programs. The existing fitness center requires an expansion and updating to provide a level of service that is in line with modern fitness trends. The addition of a gymnasium would support the youth in Ajax and the growing number of older adults. The gym would provide space for activities such as basketball, volleyball, pickleball, and badminton, and would also complement the needs for dryland training associated with the arena, pool, fitness center, and youth room. Finally, the town would be able to modernize the aesthetic finishes, functional features, and equipment found within the building that will aid in diversifying the range of uses and revenue streams provided through the ACC.
So that's just one example. And like I say, there's 8 narrated drawings relating to ARC, Pickering Village, Magnum Opus, some of our major community parks that have been added that residents will be able to visit and look at and provide their thoughts and comments. So as you can see, as you scroll through, you can see the different parks, their different locations. If I scroll down to, what would be a better one here? We can go to St. Andrews, again, as an example, and provide more information with respect to what's proposed at St. Andrews. There's also opportunities when we do click on it should be on the leave feedback page, should take you to a comment box. So each location that's been identified sort of within the document itself, you can see images and the opportunity to provide site-specific comments and feedback as it relates to the proposal. So there's an overall summary. All the documents will be attached. Past presentations will be attached to the website. And again, next steps, how to get involved in terms of following social media outlets as well. So it's really more of an interactive approach that we're hoping will solicit feedback. We will set up through the month of April pop-up locations within our community centers as well, promoting the website and promoting individuals to participate and provide their feedback. There is also, or myself and Chris are scheduled to attend the Age-Friendly Steering Committee on April 14th and the Accessibility Advisory Committee on April the 20th. And we will be engaging the various community groups and stakeholders that were involved during the first phase of this plan development back in 2020. So that is, I don't know, I'm trying to stop sharing my screen here, but I'm having a difficult time doing that. But nonetheless, that is sort of the general intent of this document, sort of what our plans are moving forward. And before, obviously, the public meeting and unveiling this page on our website, we wanted to provide this update to council so that you were aware of sort of where staff are heading in terms of the consultation process. So having said that, if anyone has any questions, I would be pleased to answer them.
Thank you, Director Meredith. Excellent scoops for us, if you will, and love the interactive map. Are there any questions from any member of council for Director Meredith at this time, as this is a preliminary? We have Regional Councillor Dyes. You have the floor, and then we'll go to Marilyn after, and then, Regional Councillor Crawford, and then to Councillor Bauer.
Not so much a question as just wanted to compliment you on this interactive master plan. I think it's going to be so much more accessible and easier to understand when you have somebody narrating for you and you can look at the maps. It's pretty amazing. So thank you so much. Great job.
Great. I should say that these are questions and comments. So that being one right there. Thank you, Regional Councillor Dyes. Next up, we have Regional Councillor Crawford.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And really just a comment, I really like the idea that it's interactive like that. I love the video feed through it and the explanation. I think I think for all the master plans that we've gone through, this is awesome. So thank you very much for whoever created all this idea. It was a good job. Thank you.
I concur. Next up, we have Councillor Bauer.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, this is excellent. I love it. And I think it will be very useful for our residents. So, and it was great that you walked us through this, Director Meredith, so we could kind of see how to use it ourselves. And so at the meeting on the 31st, do you think is that going to be part of the plan, or your presentation is presenting how to use all of those tools?
Through the chair, that's correct, Councillor Bauer. Myself and Mr. Vida will go through a more formal presentation in terms of the key findings and recommendations within the master plan. So we'll go through the document itself, and then we will end up with this presentation so that we will take those that are attending the online session and we'll show them how to should be pretty straightforward, but how to navigate and how to utilize the web page. What we'll also be doing is the public meeting will be recorded as well. So that recording of the public meeting will be attached under the document section that you see here, so that if an individual was unable to attend the public information session, they could click on and see that presentation at a later date, which then would show them how to use the website as well. So it'll be available specifically on the IMO page.
Perfect. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Councillor. Okay, thank you, Councillor Bauer. Any other questions on item number 6.1 from members of council? I don't see any. Thank you so much. So these are presentations. We can just move on to 6.2, I believe, which is hashtag Get Ajax Moving Transportation Awareness Update from Director Romanowski. You have the floor, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
I'll turn it over to Army DeFrancia to go through her presentation for us on the 2021 Get Ajax Moving campaign.
Excellent. Thank you.
All yours, Army.
Thank you. I'm just going to get my screen ready.
Hello, Army.
Hello, and good afternoon. Great. Bear with me for a second. All right. Can everyone see my screen okay? Okay, perfect. I'm seeing nods. All right. So good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for having me. Today, I will be giving an overview of the results from the 2021 Get Ajax Moving campaign. Now, before I begin, I do want to relate it back to how it fits in within the town's overall sustainable transportation encouragement efforts. In 2013, the Transportation Master Plan set a goal of increasing the percentage of residents using transit, walking, and biking combined from 20% in 2013 to 30% by 2031. Achieving this goal requires a combination of engineering, education, encouragement, and evaluation. My presentation today focuses on education and encouragement. Engineering, that's also very important as well. So that includes infrastructure improvements, and that will be addressed through the implementation of the Integrated Transportation Master Plan, as well as a number of separate projects that address that. So Get Ajax Moving, as a refresher, is a transportation awareness campaign that serves to raise awareness of the different transportation options available. From 2016 to 2019, the campaign focused on raising awareness of the benefits of sustainable transportation. And from 2020 to 2021, the campaign focused on understanding residents' motivations as well as capacity for using different sustainable transportation modes, while also testing promotional and engagement methods beyond in-person events. So let's begin with the results. All right, so in 2021, we had a combination of in-person and virtual events, as well as online campaigns. Our in-person and virtual events include Trail Fest on the Go, which was a self-guided walking and biking, which consisted of self-guided walking and biking routes in each ward. And I would like to thank Council for actively taking part in promoting those. We also had a library bike day event with the Ajax Library, where we did a presentation explaining the different bike facilities available. And we had a number of parents attend, even though it did take place on a weekday in the late morning. So the content provided clarification on the different bike facilities available. We also had a trail event with seniors in collaboration with the library, as well as the Accessible Advisory Committee. And in that presentation, we talked about the trails and explained that they could be used to get to different destinations within Ajax, such as plazas, schools, and recreation centers. And we also had an event that celebrated Pickering Village becoming a bike-friendly business district in collaboration with economic development, as well as communications and recreation. In preparation for that, we added more bike parking to Pickering Village, and we had a pop-up event with games and prizes. On the online campaign side, we had a number of campaigns, which include a Black History Month social media posts that raise awareness on the contributions of Black inventors, as well as cyclists to biking and sustainable transportation. We also had a Winter Walk Month campaign that encouraged families to walk in their neighborhood in the month of February. Usually that was a Winter Walk to School campaign, but given that there were school closures taking place at the time, we had to adapt and instead promoted walking within the neighborhood. We also had a couple of videos as part of the Winter TOA campaign that raised awareness on the mental health benefits of walking and biking, as well as tips for dressing appropriately for cold weather and icy weather. It also showcased the beauty of Ajax within the winter. We also had an active TOA campaign, which included messaging for drivers on driving safely in the presence of cyclists and pedestrians. And we had a back to school campaign where we explained the risks of driving in school zones while also working with residents to encourage walking and biking to school. So here are the results. I think that a couple major results that I would like to highlight are our collaboration with residents and also our sustained collaboration across departments. I think it was valuable to include residents in the video specifically for the Back to School TOA campaign. And I think that working with residents is something that we would like to continue in our campaign in 2022, as well as in future years. So when it came to our Back to School Town of Ajax campaign, we collaborated with residents in ways that recognized their contributions. And for example, we had a public health nurse who is also a founder of a non-for-profit, as well as a business that provides thousands of meals to seniors during the pandemic, while also addressing seniors' isolation. She's also a mother who encourages her children to walk and bike to school. So it was great having her. We also worked with a father of 4 who is a community builder and who bikes to his 3 jobs within Ajax, and who also actively engages the town to encourage safer streets for his neighbors and for the broader community. Aside from collaboration with residents as well as different departments, we also managed to engage with a total of over 250 residents through a combination of in-person and virtual events, which is actually more than 2020 before lockdown happened. And we also engaged with over 2,000 residents online, which is a combination of both social media as well as web page views. So I think it's also worth noting that for Trail Fest, we had some good participation there, with one resident traveling more than over 100 kilometers, 130 kilometers. And to put that in perspective, the distance from Lake Ridge Road and Rotary Park between Lake Ridge and 5th Concession over to Rotary Park Pavilion, which is about the northeast corner to the southeast corner, is about 17 kilometers. So that resident was basically able to explore quite the distance around Ajax a number of times. We also had the Pickering Village Bike-Friendly Business District celebration, as I mentioned before, which attracted people from Oshawa, Pickering, Scarborough, downtown Toronto, in addition to Ajax residents. And I've even seen residents in Toronto and also in Ottawa retweet the event, who expressed interest in having a similar activity in their municipality. So I thought that was worth mentioning. Great. And we're also seeing a growing active transportation culture in general. And this is based on feedback that we've received through emails, social media comments, as well as the comments on the IMO page. Staff are noticing that more people are asking for improvements to bike infrastructure and also asking about different bike routes. And these are coming from people who I've never heard from prior to the pandemic. So I thought that was pretty interesting. There was even a woman who shared a photo of her with her tricycle, an adult-sized tricycle that had a big basket, useful for carrying things around. So I thought that was interesting. And even while filming the winter TOA videos, I noticed that there were at least 5 other residents who are biking even during the winter. And there are residents who continue to express concerns with speeding and driving behaviors because they have an interest in letting their children walk in their neighborhoods. We've also received concerns from people with disabilities regarding drivers not looking for pedestrians with disabilities. So that's just to say that there is growing interest for both walking as well as biking. But there are also continue to be a number of misunderstandings about active transportation as well as who can benefit from them. So that continues to remain a challenge. One of these challenges is the misperception that people with disabilities cannot use active transportation. There are ways to adjust different modes to make that happen, though I am also under the understanding that that's something it's an option that can be used some of the time, not necessarily all of the time. And there may be times where, depending on the disability, there may be use for car or some type of transit. There's also conflicting concerns about biking on the sidewalk. And there's also concerns about relocating trees from multi-use paths. And there's also misunderstandings about what a bike lane is versus what a shared bike route or a road with sharrows are. So that's something that still needs to be addressed in future campaigns. It is not feasible to address all of these misunderstandings with 1 year, although staff will continue to seek ways to address these misunderstandings by collaborating with residents, as well as investigating, as well as through research and exploring other ways to do so. So moving forward, we will continue building up momentum from past campaigns as well as popular events. And we'll be building on opportunities to collaborate with other jurisdictions, as well as school boards, committees, and residents of various ages and abilities. We'll be investigating ways to improve our capacity for evaluation as well through other projects. And that is our plan for this year. So at this time, I am happy to answer any questions anyone may have.
Thank you so much for your presentation. Much appreciated. Very thorough, very relevant. First up, we have Regional Councillor Crawford, who I believe has a question.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Army, thank you for all the work that you've done. I'm sure that it must feel like when you're doing your little videos, they were awesome. I loved every one of them, that nobody was listening, but I was listening. We all watched them and I think they were great. So thank you. All your tips on riding on the sidewalks and the road and safety and, you know, all those things that are so kind of basic to people who ride bikes aren't necessarily basic to new people that are riding bikes. So thank you so much for those. You must have seen through the pandemic, at least I did when I was out walking and stuff, the interest for bikes really increased. And it was really nice to see families out with their, you know, with their kids on the sidewalk I know they're on the sidewalk, but I mean, like, not everybody's going to be comfortable on the roads. Not everyone's going to be comfortable on a bike lane. Not like people who are crazy like us, but it's okay. Like, it was just so nice to be able to see families together out on their bikes. So I really saw, and of course the bike shops were out of bikes. So obviously somebody was buying bikes, right? There was a real interest in, increased interest in bikes. And I'm really happy to hear that. I think 12 years on council, I've never heard that residents actually want better bike infrastructure. Ever. Have I ever heard that? So that is very that's good news for me, because I would love to see that for everyone, because I think the more we can create a safe place for people to be riding bikes, the better it is for everybody. And I'm really happy to hear that there's a real interest in that. I did want to say that through the winter, winter is hard anyway, but like this blasted snowstorm that we had was such a pain. But I have to say, it's the first time I ever tried snowshoeing, ever in my whole life. And I would highly recommend it to anyone. I thought it was going to be really hard, but it wasn't. It was such a great way to explore like our conservation areas, just our parklands. You don't even, it's not that hard. It was hard to get them because I think a lot of people were using them, but I just want to say what a great program that is, that you can go in, you can book your time, and you can get snowshoes and you can try them out. And if you really like it, then you can buy your own, because that's a great, it's an investment, but it's a great way to try something new. And a lot of times in the winter, we don't have enough snow to try it. So this year was a wonderful year to be able to try new things. And as for me, snowshoeing was my thing. So really happy. I thought we had, the pandemic met obviously with so many challenges, but I think that everybody agreed that getting outside was the safest place you could be for at least the early parts of the pandemic. And you could really see families out there. We had mandatory walks in our houses. I made everybody get out, and it's better for your mental health. Just the being in the sunshine, getting the fresh air, getting away from a screen. And so, for everything that you did through those difficult times, trying to get people active, I want to thank you, because you did a good job. So thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Oh, I did have a question. My bad. Really did have a question.
Hey, go ahead.
Prior to the pandemic, we used to go out to the schools and talk about the active school programs and safe ways to get to school and all that kind of thing. And then all of a sudden, it just literally shut down. Once the schools closed, everything else happened. Are we ever going to circle back on kind of some of those recommendations that happened? I know a few things came out, and I was just curious if there was a record of those recommendations, and if we would be following up with those.
Through the chair, thank you, Regional Councillor Crawford. It's great to hear that there's been quite the momentum for active transportation that you've seen. And I'm glad that you have been able to explore different ways of getting around, including snowshoeing. That does count as active transportation. So I'm very happy to hear that. Now, regarding schools, we're actually working on an equitable community engagement plan for active school travel, as well as a youth active school travel toolkit. So more information about that will be available within the next coming months. We have engaged schools recently for Winter Walk Day this year, and we've actually had quite some success. We've had 11 schools register for Winter Walk Day, which is the most that we've had registered since 2018. And that's actually pretty good compared to pre-pandemic conditions. But we'll continue to work with the school boards to explore ways to engage schools as well as school communities. And through the Equitable Community Engagement Plan for Active School Travel, we'll also look for ways to continue engaging youth and parents.
I'm not sure if you're aware, but I sit on the Ontario Active School Council. And so anytime you're having those kinds of meetings, I'd love to be engaged so I can feel like I have some kind of input. That'd be great. Or just keep me posted. That'd be awesome. Thank you.
Thank you, Regional Councillor Crawford. And thank you. Before I say this, is there any other questions from any member of council? Okay, we have Councillor Bauer and then Regional Councillor Dutz.
Thank you, Chair. Great presentation as always, Army. Thank you so much for all the work that you do. Can you please talk again about the slide number on page 7, the active transportation misunderstandings? And forgive me if you did go talk about how these were going to be addressed. But can you talk a little bit more about what you saw, heard, and what the plan is going forward to address these, please?
Through the chair, thank you, Councillor Bauer. I realize I probably should have talked about that in a bit more detail. So I do recall seeing a remark on social media about expressing concern that, oh, why are we promoting walking and biking when there's people with disabilities can't do that? Meanwhile, I've also heard concerns from people with disabilities that there are concerns with dangerous driving behaviors, specifically at intersections. And even when we look at the Durham Region Road Safety Plan, that intersections tend to be one of the key priority areas when it comes to collisions. So to address that, at least on the education and encouragement side, what we're looking to do is to work with with members of the Accessibility Advisory Committee, as well as residents with disabilities in general, to do a driver safety campaign that discusses the importance of safe driving and how that can affect people with disabilities, letting people know that people with disabilities actually do navigate through Ajax and do go outside and cross the different crossings and intersections. And also to raise awareness that there's some disabilities that are just not visible. And that's something that we, whether as drivers or cyclists or other modes of transportation, need to be cognizant about, need to be patient with. And also to include a photo shoot that shows people with disabilities using different active transportation modes, and ideally in different types of weather, but that also depends on staff capacity. So just to address that misperception, and also to show people with disabilities enjoying being around Ajax. I'm not sure if it's just that a lot of images of people with disabilities tend to look sickly or not very dignified. So I would like to use this campaign to show the leadership as well as the dignity of people with disabilities through a driver safety campaign as well as a photo shoot.
100%. Excellent. Thank you so much. And I completely agree with you. And I do recall actually your presentation and discussion with the amazing members of the Accessibility Advisory Committee. So I think there's going to be some great work done. And then just, do you want to comment on those other 3 items on that slide? Is there a plan for that to address those?
Currently not too much, aside from maybe using some of the existing material from previous videos, as well as providing that social media content. And where possible, we still have to see, depending on staff capacity, but updating the website so that this type of information is easier to find as well.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much for your explanation. That's it for me, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Regional Councillor Dice, did you have a question or comment?
I have a few questions. Thank you. Connecting the trails and having a safe trail for cyclists is really, really important, particularly if you're not comfortable on roads per se. And we have the Duffins Creek Trail. Can you tell me when that segment, I know we're connecting that segment that's been closed down for some time, and that means people in the south can now access the GO train station by cycling or walking. Do you know when that might be completed?
Through the chair, I'm sorry, Regional Councillor Dice, are you referring to creating a new connection that leads directly to the GO station as planned in the Integrated Transportation Master Plan, or are you referring to repairs that need to be made on the Duffins Creek Trail?
It was part of the trail that was closed down by a new property owner.
I can take this, Army, through the chair to Councillor Dice. So yes, we recently acquired the lands behind, I think 384 or 387 Westin. The plans to do those repairs and get that portion of the trail back up to snuff is definitely something that we'll take care of through the transaction of those lands. But to complete that connection up to Bailey, that will take place as those lands are developed. We do have some interim solutions that can be provided through the St. Abram's Coptic Church. But the actual physical connection from the property that we've recently acquired to Bailey Street, that will be realized once those development applications come in for that property. So it could be another year, probably a year away as the region completes their municipal comprehensive review. Those lands around the intersection of Bailey and Westin have been included in the GO node, MTSA. We could see probably in the more near future that those blocks of lands around the intersection being considered for redevelopment. And that's when that trail connection would be foreseeably completed.
So is that trail connection questionable then in the future if we're waiting?
No.
Okay.
It's not questionable. We did, be going back maybe 6 or 7 years ago. There was a proposal for a medical building on that property. Right. But the developer of the site at Salem and Rossland scooped all the tenants from that property owner and built that 4-story medical building there at Salem and Rossland. So there was a delay there. Now there's been a change in ownership of the lands. There's been some discussions about the redevelopment of those lands, but no formal submissions made as of yet. And just kind of thinking about how to maneuver through that. Definitely can have some, advanced conversations with those property owners once we clean up the land that we just got and see if there's a way that we can get that through ahead of a development application. But we wanted to kind of let the region's process with the MCR evolve a little bit more and make sure that we got this other piece, which was kind of the missing link to finish that connection. And now that we have that, I think we can be put in a position where we can have those conversations with that last landowner to make that connection happen sooner than later.
Sooner would be great. Thank you for that. It's interesting, Armin, and I thank you for your report. You've done a lot of great work here, and it takes a long time because there's so much information to get through to most people. And I know that these SHAROs are kind of new for everybody. But it was interesting to note that when you surveyed businesses that there were many that wanted to put in cycling or bike racks, basically. So I'm wondering, those businesses, were some of those retail businesses? Do you know?
Through the chair. So my understanding from the requests I've seen were mainly from restaurants.
Okay. And from my perspective, I'd like to be able to go to the grocery store to pick up whatever. I can do that. I have a backpack, or I can strap something on the back of my bike. And I would do that consistently if I had a place to lock my bike. But I'm finding with most of these stores, there is nowhere to lock up your bike. And I think that's why, I used to lock it in front of the old plaza on a tree, and finally they put one in the old plaza there that I could actually hook my bike up to. But I think it's really important, and it drives business. It improves their business. And like you say, you want to get out and get people moving. So would that be something maybe we could talk about more in the next phase of our plan with businesses?
Through the chair. So I do understand it can be a challenge. I know that there's some plazas where the bike parking is near the major arterial road. Meanwhile, the entrance to the store, to the grocery store is at least 10 meters down or something like that. And that does continue to remain a challenge. When businesses or when property owners submit a development application to us, we do provide comments And we do request for bicycle parking, regardless of what type of development it is. And sometimes that does include grocery stores. We are also working on our transportation demand management plan update, which will update the recommendations for bike parking at different types of land uses. And I'm not sure if, Jeff, you want to speak to this or anyone else from planning and development, but we are also working on the zoning bylaw update, which will also provide requirements for bicycle parking at different types of land uses.
Yeah, I don't need to jump in there for anything. Armin covered that all off. It's kind of our staple comments when it comes to active transportation through the development review process. Bike racks, accessible paths, having the bike racks in a location that are in the closest proximity to the stores, not having to cross drive aisles, all those types of things. So that's kind of ingrained in our development review process and all the other things that Armin mentioned. So it's definitely at the top of mind. Even plazas doing upgraded repairs or facade improvements, we take opportunity at that time to enhance any bicycle facilities or active transportation facilities, or even just the pedestrian elements within those plazas also. So that's part of our review process here in planning.
Well, I thank you for that. And I can't shop, obviously, in something that hasn't been developed yet. So the stores I go to already exist, and I get a little bit tired of taking my bicycle inside the store with my shopping, because when you invest in a bike, it's no joke. If you have a good bike, you don't want to park it where there's no eyes on it. And I think it really, the message I'm trying to get out is it's important to businesses. If they want that type of business, and they will get it. And maybe that's something we can look for in the future as possible grants for those kinds of facilities for existing businesses, particularly in the downtown as well, which is close for people to ride to. So it's just my, one of my pet peeves is that I can't do that because there is nowhere to park my bike. I noted that you did mention, aggressive driving behaviors, and I agree that's always been a problem. It's not getting any better; it's getting worse. I don't know what we can do there, other than keep getting the message out. But I also wonder, the message that we talk about constantly about the benefits of active transportation and sustainable transportation is the same message we've used for a very long time. And wondered if that's something that we can look at differently too, because what does that really need? Sustainable transportation. And I think through COVID, we've recognized that there are more and more people using our green spaces and trails, and they've grown to appreciate it, and they're going to continue. They've been doing this for 2 years, and they're going to continue to walk and ride. And I think the benefits, obviously, we know the health benefits, but the other benefits is it takes the congestion off the roads. The more cyclists you have making these short trips to the grocery store, to the school, to the library, to the ACC, wherever, you're taking cars off the road. And that's a benefit because people complain about congestion. The other benefit is the clean air and what it does for the environment. And we were talking about this today, and I can only say that first summer of COVID, there were 0 poor quality air days, when we usually have a number of them, particularly on those hot days. There were 0. And that was because there were a lot fewer cars at that point on the road. So we saw firsthand the benefits of taking your bike and getting active. So I'm wondering if we can, talk about those, those very typical, understandable things. One being, the cleaner air, the benefits, getting cars off the road. And also when we're talking about people who are moving here, living on corridors where there's public transportation, who don't own cars, the benefits and why they choose not to own cars, and the costs of owning the cars. So I think these are all important things we could also talk about as we move forward. And I just wanted to, it's not so much a question, but put that forward to you to think about. Thank Thank you, Army.
Okay. Very thorough questions and comments from members of council. Are there any other members of council that have a question on 6.2? I actually just want to comment or / question. So we had a motion come to council for bike lockers at the GO Transit station. Regional Councillor Crawford and I, and passed unanimously. It's one of those motions, where nobody's against that kind of thing. But it does come down to what Regional Councillor Dyes was saying. And once you reach your destination with these great initiatives, we all have bikes in our garage. You see these and you go, I need to ride it more. So it's great. But when you get to the store, when you get to the bank, when you get to the hardware store, and when you get to GO Transit, it would be amazing to have a bike locker there. That's already been said. Again, this council's already spoke to that. We sent the recommendation from our council to the Minister of Transportation of the province, Caroline Mulroney, the Honourable Caroline Mulroney. But I'm wondering if we can, maybe follow that up from your world and have another letter go out and say, we kind of, clean it up. It would finish this. When you think of the path that you're putting in, which runs up to Bailey and across and gets into the GO train station. That's gold. That's so great. But when you get there, it would be nice to have a bike locker so that people can put their bikes in, less traffic at the GO train station. So I'm asking maybe either yourself, Mr. Franca, or Director Romanowski, if there's something, just as an added nothing to lose, could we reach out to the minister again and say, hey, we're doing this. Would be timely, council. Is that something that we could look at? Thank you,
Mr. Chair. So I'm really happy to hear that this is such an important item for council, and that is something that we can bring up to Metrolinx in our discussions with them. I'm not sure if a letter would be most appropriate, but staff can investigate ways of asking Metrolinx to bring that forward. And as you mentioned, it is important to provide that bike parking, and with bike lockers specifically, it does help to reduce the risk of bike theft. And it also reduces pressures of that people may have when they bring, instead of feeling pressured to bring your bike on the GO train, it gives that extra option of having a place to leave your bike in a safe way.
Yeah, you're right. It should be Metrolinx. But the minister, we actually spoke with her at the GO train station one day. But anyway, okay, thank you so much. If we could do that, that would be great. And if you can maybe let us know on council that you've done that. To Metrolinx and just to complete this circle, if you will. Okay, so we've looked thoroughly into 6.2. Are we all good now? I think we are. I'm actually going to need a motion to approve the recommendations in this. We'll go with Councillor Bauer. All in favor for item 6.2. Thank you so much. And we can now move on to the next item. We're almost done here, I believe. So 6.3, Age-Friendly Ajax Community Plan, Year 1, and it's Director Vida. You have the floor, sir. Just quickly, do you prefer Vida or Vida?
Vida.
Vida.
Yes.
I'll never call you Vida again.
Well, thank you for checking. I appreciate that. Thank you. And we have a presentation that Laura Ray has developed that she's going to present on momentarily to provide an update on the Age-Friendly Ajax Community Plan, including the year 1 accomplishments of that plan. So the Ajax Age-Friendly Steering Committee, under Laura's guidance and leadership, has made a number of significant contributions to the Age-Friendly Community Plan, as well as the town's strategic plan, including the Age-Friendly web portal and resource guides that have been previously shared with council that Laura is going to discuss further. So I will turn it over to Laura so she can provide a further update on the great work on that committee has completed this year. So go ahead, Laura.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Chris. So good afternoon. And as Chris mentioned, it is my pleasure to present the Age-Friendly Ajax Community Plan Year 1 update. But before diving into the presentation, I would like to begin by just acknowledging the hard work and dedication of the Age-Friendly Ajax Steering Committee. So this is really the team, or I call them the champions advocates, who are responsible for providing the strategic direction, which really, propels the implementation of this plan. And so it's an interdisciplinary team that's consisting of, we have community organizations representative, residents, advocates, as well as key key town staff and departmental leads who have, again, like I said, really been that driving force behind many of the accomplishments and achievements that I'm happy to share with you today. So their efforts are really propelling Ajax forward to becoming a more age-friendly community, through the realizations of the goals and recommendations within the plan. So without further ado, I'm excited to share the progress that we've made thus far. Next slide, please. So the Age-Friendly Ajax Community Plan, and I'm going to use the acronym AFACP just to shorten it up there a bit. It's a 5-year plan, and it contains 20 goals and 82 recommendations. And each of those recommendations is really categorized based on its timeline for implementation. But of those 82 recommendations, and you can see kind of the red asterisks on the first blue circle there, 48 of them are categorized as immediate recommendations. So essentially, that means that the time frame for implementing those recommendations falls within the first 2 years of the plan's life cycle. So therefore, when looking at the life cycle of the AFACP, it's very much a front-end loaded strategy. And that makes year 1 and year 2 significant reporting years for this specific plan. So the year 1 report essentially is providing a snapshot of progress beginning at the very beginning of October 2020. So that was when the Age-Friendly Ajax Steering Committee resumed after hiatus due to the pandemic. And then goes right up to the end of October 2021. So for the purposes of this report, in terms of reporting on those highlights, we're really talking about that time period. So, but while those immediate recommendations right now are the priority for implementation, the report is not limited to those. So it also has included highlights of recommendations that have been designated in those 2 alternate categories. So the future being the blue diamond on your screen. So the 3 to 5 year implementation timeline, as well as those that we've earmarked as future contingent on funding. And so really the ones that fall into those categories have been made attainable due to either government investments or grants that have come down the pipeline that we've been able to kind of jump on and take advantage of. Next slide, please. So I just wanted to give a little bit of background before getting into the highlights on the reporting mechanism for the AFACP, because it is rather unique. So when we went forward to the community in 2019 during the community consultation phase of this plan, we did hear some concerns over kind of a disconnect between the consultation phase and then how are residents and stakeholders really going to see their input and feedback in action, and how is it actually going to be reflected and impact the policies and services and programs that the town and community provides. So the residents and stakeholders essentially expressed that we needed to do a better job of connecting those dots for them, so to speak, and really ensuring that the public is involved in all stages of the AFACP life cycle. So not just the consultation, but right up to the reporting process. So therefore, when we were developing the plan, this was a really important feedback that we received. So we developed recommendation 20.1 under the communication and information section, where it explicitly states that not only are we going to have a requirement for annual public reporting with this plan, but that the reporting is actually going to be led by a group of Ajax resident volunteers to ensure the utmost transparency of how that feedback is being reflected in terms of those policy and service and programs. So the resulting group is referred to as the Age-Friendly Review Panel. They are independent of the steering committee. So the steering committee is our implementation team, and this new review panel is really the review team or the assessment team. And so they were recruited at the beginning of 2021. They consist of 9 members, 6 of which are representing the older adult population. And so they're currently developing our first public report. And they're going to continue to monitor the progress of those 82 recommendations throughout the life cycle of the plan against key performance indicators. So I just wanted to provide some background and context as to how this reporting is functioning. Next slide, please. So, obviously we've heard a lot of presentations talking about the impacts of COVID, and unfortunately, we have experienced our own challenges with age-friendly implementation. But I am happy to share that we've made significant, work in progress towards achieving those goals and recommendations within the AFACP. So while I'm not going to go through every achievement, as council has received the full report, I am happy to present kind of a snapshot of some of our major highlights under each of the age-friendly community dimensions. So under outdoor spaces and buildings, one of our major achievements within that time period, our reporting period, was the redesign of Roland Michener Park. So this was an existing capital project, but it timed perfectly with the release of the Ontario Inclusive Community Grant. So we were the successful recipient through that granting program, and it supported an additional installation to that park of 6 age-friendly fitness stations as part of that park redesign. So these age-friendly enhancements not only support, active and healthy living, but, it was very timely. And when we're talking about COVID-19 and the previous active transportation presentation, provided that additional safe, physically distant outdoor community participation space. So that was a really fantastic achievement. And then to kind of dovetail onto that, when we underwent the 2017 Older Adult and Seniors Recreational Services Strategy, Roland Michener Park is also located within the area of town which we are expected to experience the largest growth in the older adult population over the next 10 years. So really that was one of those star aligning moments that the funding was there, the park was ready to be redesigned, and within an area we know we're going to see an increase in older adult populations. Next slide, please. So transportation, Durham Region Transit was also a recipient of an inclusive community grant. So they received funding to install 9 on-demand booking kiosks that would specifically be installed within senior residences across Durham Region. And we were the recipient of one within the Ajax community. So it was installed at Harwood Manor, which is in Ajax, just in the south end across from the hospital. So essentially the on-demand booking kiosk is ensuring that older adults have access to that booking technology. And it's also providing, that safe and reliable access to transit. And with the new on-demand services, it's really allowing, we're minimizing that outdoor wait times, especially with this winter and having such harsh conditions, that there's an ability to book transit, in a safe and secure environment, and, only have a couple of minutes to have to, transition over to your stop before public transit comes to pick you up. And then another, as a result of COVID-19, we also saw that several transit providers were offering free rides to COVID-19 vaccination clinics. So this included Durham Region Transit, of course, Community Care Durham, and also an organization called Seniors on Wheels. Next slide, please. So under housing, there was a lot to be celebrated. We saw a lot of development applications submitted, which really would provide and support a variety of different housing options for older adults within the Ajax community. So this included, and I'll get into kind of the long-term care piece a little bit later, but includes, both affordable and market value senior rental units, long-term care facilities, and then new retirement communities slated to come to the Ajax community as well. But really the success story that I wanted to share was the Doors of Compassion program. So in response to the pandemic, obviously we saw a lot of increased community need. And so Doors of Compassion quickly evolved from what was an out of the cold warming center to a full-on 24/7 housing focused shelter within Ajax. So the program is a partnership between Christian Faith Outreach Center and the region of Durham. And it essentially provides safe and supportive 20-bed shelter, as well as wraparound services for those who are homeless or at risk of homelessness. The head of the organization does sit on our age-friendly steering committee, and has expressed on numerous occasions that there are older adults accessing this program. So this was a fantastic win for the Ajax community to have that extra level of service being available within our community. Next slide, please. So social participation, unfortunately, this was one of the hardest hit by the pandemic. As we all know, at one point, we were almost at a complete absence of community participation opportunities, which also resulted in, a drastic increase in social isolation. So in response, the Recreation, Culture and Community Development Department, in partnership with the library, launched Senior Center Without Walls. So essentially, this is a fully immersive, call in or Zoom in program that connects older adults, from the comfort of home. And so you can participate in activities 5 days a week. They range from fitness programs to trivia, guest speakers, games, storytelling and sharing. So many participants who, got involved with this program shared that, in the height of the pandemic, like this was the highlight of their day. They often would schedule all their other daily tasks around participating in Senior Centers Without Walls, and that it was, greatly improved their well-being during, those especially strict lockdowns where they weren't even able to kind of go to the grocery store and were getting everything delivered, that this was their kind of one touch point to social participation within the community. And then in addition to that, both Recreation and the library offered many other programs to help combat social isolation and also, create those community participation opportunities, whether it be through, virtual lunch and learns, virtual fitness programming, there's curbside pickup activity kits. But we're certainly excited to see that we're now moving in the direction of much more in-person programming. Next slide, please.
If I may, Laura, do you know how many more slides you have? Just for our pacing, just trying to figure.
I think 3.
Okay.
Yes.
Thank you.
In terms of civic participation and employment, the town does a really good job. We have, a wide variety of volunteer and civic engagement opportunities. And in fact, we actually have 4 resident-based committees that are specifically to advise on older adult community needs. But what I did want to highlight that I don't think a lot of people are aware of is the Alzheimer's Society program. So they have a program called Dementia Friendly Communities. And essentially Dementia Friendly and Age Friendly share much of the same framework. So the program provides free training to organizations and businesses to essentially help them implement practices and create physical environments that are dementia friendly and in turn are age friendly. So in addition to providing this education, they also maintain a public directory of dementia-friendly businesses on their website. So this is a fantastic resource for Ajax families who may be care partners for someone who is living with dementia. To access and know that they can access these different businesses and that they will be suitable for those living in our community with dementia. Next slide. So community support and health services. So as I alluded to, one of the major achievements to highlight is the addition of long-term care beds to the Ajax community. So in the reporting period, there was 444 new long-term care beds identified between the Lakebridge Health brand new facility and then the upgraded Chartwell Ballycliffe Lodge. But then, obviously just as we closed out year 1 of reporting, we had the announcement of Schlegel Villages, which is another 192. So within, a 2-year span, we've had 634 long-term care beds, added to the Ajax community. And this is really paramount as a major pillar of age-friendly communities is the ability to age in place. And so this is inclusive of transitioning to a long-term care facility. So the addition of these beds means that there is increased opportunity for Ajax residents to remain in Ajax when they do make that transition. And then that affords them the ability to, stay connected to those families, those friends, and those community supports that they, have already been accessing within Ajax. The other piece is the age-friendly Ajax Community Resource Guide. So this was released last October. And it is a comprehensive directory of local government, health program and benefit services, financial, social supports for older adults. So this guide is available on the ajax.ca/age-friendly website. We did have hard copies, but they were such a popular resource that we have since depleted our stock, and we'll be looking to get more hard copies in the future to distribute to the community. And next slide. So communication and information, when we went through the process of developing the Ajax or the AFACP, kind of one of our main goals and first goals was to apply for membership to the World Health Organization Global Age-Friendly Cities and Communities Network. So I am pleased to share that we achieved that goal. So officially we are accepted into the WHO network as of February of 2021. So as a member of this network, we are able to access, research, best practices, learning and development opportunities. And then it also provides kind of, global recognition for the town of Ajax and gives visibility to a lot of Ajax's age-friendly initiatives as well. And the other major milestone was the development of the age-friendly Ajax web portal. So this is, it's housed on the ajax.ca website, but it's that kind of one-stop shop for online information. So the whole premise is that, an older adult can visit ajax.ca/age-friendly, and they're only 3 clicks away from information. And it's not just town services, but it's also links them to community agencies and information, whether that be a regional service, a provincial service, or even a federal service. So again, three clicks away, and they should be able to access the information that they seek. And I think it's the last slide. So just a little sneak peek as to what's next. So we are going to be launching the first public progress report next month. So we're making it into obviously an easy to digest kind of newsletter format that's going to highlight and feature, a similar list of the success stories, our highlights, and what residents can kind of expect to see in the coming year in terms of age-friendly achievements and projects. And, at the moment, we are continuing to work on the implementation of those immediate recommendations. So those that have been earmarked for year 1 and year 2 within the plan. And then come the end of year 2, we'll mark a significant milestone, because again, that will be kind of the life cycle of those immediate recommendations. We will be putting forth a formal assessment that will be completed by the age-friendly review panel that will really look at progress in relation to those key performance indicators. And so we expect to start work on that as of November of this year. And we'll hopefully have that to council in early 2023. So with that, I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Laura, very much for your thorough presentation. Do we have any members of council that have a question? Regional Councillor Dyes.
Thank you, Laura, for the work you're doing. I just had a question about your housing strategy that you're working on, and looking at whether the demographics and housing data, that kind of thing, you'll be looking at all of that. And I just want to make sure, for me, the long-term care home, when you look at the lifespan now that we're looking at ages, also because many are living into the 90s and the 100-year-old. So that long-term care home usually only comes into effect in those later years. And that middle part is when you downsize and you need somewhere to live. So we have 3 not-for-profit seniors buildings here in Ajax. Have we looked at whether that's going to be enough to cover that income level going forward as the town grows?
That is a great question. And I know it's something that has come up. Through the chair to Regional Councillor Dyes. It has come up within the age-friendly steering committee. And there is much concern about what that intermediary step is. And there's also concern about, even if you are looking at long-term care, of what the wait list for that is. So what is the interim solution for that? Joyce Chen does sit on the committee as well. And I don't know if maybe Director Romanowski might be better suited to speak to the housing strategy piece of things. But it is something that we're going to have to investigate. A lot of the recommendations in the plan this time around of the life cycle hasn't spoke specifically to specific types of housing. But as we're kind of moving through this, we're seeing that that's a gap that's becoming identified more and more and more. And I think needs to be reflected in future reiterations of this plan, especially when we have the housing strategy data and information available as well.
Well,
Mr. Romanowski.
Yeah, and I can pick up on that. Thanks, Laura. I mean, P&D, we're working on our housing strategy right now. It's going through the internal review. We'll be presenting something to the senior management team in April, with hopes of bringing a formal report to council in May on the housing strategy from the Ajax perspective. So a lot of those questions that you've asked, Regional Councillor Dyes, will be kind of broken down through this housing strategy and kind of lay out the path for Ajax going forward when it comes to housing. And it's, big housing is the umbrella, and all the elements that kind of fall under that umbrella with regards to housing. That'll be part of the strategy that the policy section brings forward.
Well, thank you for that. And I look forward to seeing that because I know it's very, very important. A lot of our seniors are having to leave the municipality to find housing that they require. So I'm glad you're doing the review. Thank you. Thanks for your presentation.
Thank you, Regional Councillor Dyes. And next we have Councillor Bauer.
Thank you, Chair. Hi, Laura. Thank you for the presentation. Excellent, excellent information. Can you just repeat the activity regarding the Alzheimer's Society of Durham?
Absolutely. So they offer, it's called Dementia Friendly Communities. It's a national initiative, obviously delivered within the local chapter. So it's a full free training opportunity. They recently released a new version of it, and it focuses on 3 sectors, and recreation and library is one of those sectors. And so it provides a comprehensive module training format that you can, like, employees can complete at their own leisure. And then it also provides a secret shopper element to it, where they have an individual living with dementia within the community come out and actually evaluate what has been put in place in terms of whether it's physical spaces that had to be changed or customer service policies or processes that had to be changed after that business or organization has completed the training. And once they've gone through that process, then they're certified as dementia friendly, kind of meeting those criteria. And then they're added to the public directory that's on the Durham Alzheimer's page.
I think that's fantastic. Okay. All right. I'm going to take a look at their website. Thank you so much. That was my question, Chair. Thank you.
That's great. Great presentation. Very important matters in our community. We're dealing with my dad. You never know until it hits you, and then it's so important. Are there any other questions for Mrs. Ray? No, there being none. Thank you so much for your presentation and your ongoing hard work. Okay, so we need a mover for 6.3. There are recommendations within the presentation. Councillor Khan, all in favor? Moved by Councillor Khan, I should say. All in favor. Thank you. So that carries, which brings us to the closed session, the authority to hold a closed meeting, related in-camera session. Can I have a mover to go into closed session? We'll go Regional Councillor Marilyn Crawford. All in favor? Okay, Mr.
One more.
There's one more.
Mr. Chair, we are live again.
Thank you, Mr. Clerk. The motion, just if you can help me with the wording again, Mr. Clerk, sorry. We have 7.1 is nomination Durham Environmental Advisory Committee. And can we have a mover, please? Moved by Regional Councillor Lee. All in favor? That motion carries. Okay. And now we need a motion to adjourn. We will go with Lisa Bauer. Sorry, Councillor Bauer. All in favor? That motion carries. Thank you very much.